Dr. Joyce Pius Egunjobi. I'm welcoming you to Capuchin TV, to our normal program, taking care of your psycho-spiritual well-being. And this program runs every Thursday by 2:30 p.m. East African time. And it's good to see you again. We continue on our program on the discussion we left with on last week, and that is on the topic called addiction. And while we're talking about addiction, we did mention about what it is to be addicted, what it is to be addictive, and we talk about different things, as in what we have blamed the addiction on the place on loss of self, loss of job, homes, family, and relationship, and the rest. So we dwelled more last week again of what addiction is not, and we said it is not a habit, if you remember, because a habit can be changed. Addiction may be a little bit difficult, challenging to be changed. We say that addiction is not the love of a thing or a behavior. It's not just because you love something or you like a particular behavior or you have a particular mannerism. Now, that's not just what is addiction. We also talked about addiction, not just the alcohol itself, not just the marijuana, not just the meth, not just the cat, not just the opioid, not just those things. That addiction, again, is not just those things. So, because you can have somebody who actually is drinking and getting addicted, and somebody else is drinking and not getting addicted. So, what's the difference? So, it's not just about the drug or alcohol. We also talk about that addiction is not what one cannot do without, even though it's part of it, but not just because you can't do with anything, therefore you're addicted. Today, we are so much entangled with food. I mean, you have to eat every day. Does that mean you're addicted to that? Yeah, you have to maybe because of your health situation, you have to be taking medication. That does not mean that you're addicted to the medication you take every day. And that is why in the DSM-5, they will remove the word, we don't normally use the word dependency anymore, because we can depend on a lot of things and yet not necessarily be addicted to it. Of course, so that took us into understanding what addiction is. We look at addiction from the biological model, and we look at it from moral model. We also look at it from a psychological model, Then we went into little understanding of a socio-cultural context of addiction, and we talk about the technological model of addiction, and we also talked about the spiritual model of addiction. And of course, that tells you the basic things we try to approach here. When we look at the other situation, we look at it from the biopsycho-socio-techno-spiritual perspective. So this week, we'll be looking at what is addiction. Again, last week we talked about what addiction is not. So this week, we'll be looking at what is addiction. We talk about this addiction every now and then. But of course, what is the understanding of addiction? So when you look at our understanding of addiction also, we talked about a different model last week. Also, we'll be looking at addiction from the medical perspective, from the psychological perspective, from the sociological perspective, from the technological perspective, and of course, from the spiritual aspect. What is the understanding, or what is the definition in a way of addiction? Medically, because we have what we call the medical model, which actually seems more like what we call the disease model of addiction, we have a way of looking at it from that perspective, because it is related to somebody being sick. So when somebody is addicted in a medical form, we say the person is sick. It's a disease of the brain. And then according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, what we call ASAM, that's the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among the brain circuits, genetics, and of course the environment. And individuals and individuals' life experiences. So when they look at it in terms of the interaction between your brain, what goes on in your brain with what goes on with your genetics, the gene, and what goes with your environment where you relate with, and of course with the individual life experiences, how you relate with your world and how you relate with all these. So for medical perspective, people with addiction use substance, of course, and they engage in behaviors that become compulsive. Compulsive is something that you just want to do without, you lose a little control, and often continues despite that you have negative consequences. It's affecting you, affecting your relationship, affecting your family, affecting whatever, your job. Despite that, actually when we look at it, it's like when it's affecting your health, for example. Like somebody taking alcohol, for example, and then he begins to have a baby diagnosed for having liver problem, maybe enlarged liver, or what they call liver cirrhosis, or maybe the cancer kind of a thing, and the doctor is telling you that you need to stop drinking because it's already affecting part of your organs, and if care is not taken, you're going to die, and you still see the person still drinking. So we said it's because the person is sick in the brain, probably. So of course, prevention efforts and the treatment approaches for addiction are generally as successful as those of the chronic diseases. So if they can treat people with the chronic diseases with the medication or the medical approaches, it is also believed from this medical perspective that addiction can also be treated. So also we look at it psychologically. Psychologically, also if you want to look at how it begins to affect our thoughts process, our feelings, and of course the way we behave. Our thoughts process, our feelings, and the way we behave. And according to the American Psychiatric Association, APA, addiction is a complex condition. Also, they call it a brain disease, the same way as in the medical approach, that is manifested by compulsive substance use or a particular behavior despite also harmful consequences. Harmful consequences indicates that, despite that this thing is causing you depression or causing you maybe anxiety or, then you are still using it. Or maybe you begin to get into what we call low self-esteem kind of thing. You are still engaging in that behavior or in taking that particular drink or substance. So that's from psychological perspective, that's how we look at it. We relate it to the mental disorder in many times. And the people with the substance use disorder have distorted thinking. That's what it is. And they say that's why they have a behavioral, of course, bodily functions that may not relate well or well coordinated. And that's why the cognitive behavioral therapy have been very useful in dealing with this situation. We'll talk about that in the later episodes. So also we look at addiction socially. And addiction, understood from social perspective, is the repeated involvement with a substance or activity. I repeat, repeated engagement or involvement with a substance or activity despite the substantial negative effects on the relationship with significant others. Who are the significant others? Could be your wife, could be your husband, could be your children, could be your boyfriend, your girlfriend, could be your colleague at work, could be, people that you actually have regard for, and you begin to lose it begin to affect your relationship because of your addictive behavior. And then it can also lead to what we call, in that situation, it can lead to loss of job, loss of home, and then can end you in legal problems because of your drug use. And of course, it can also relate to loss of your family, the causing separation, divorce, your children leaving home, or you are leaving your family because you are no longer responsible for them, or you find yourself in jail, or anything like that. loss of your house because you can't pay the rent because of your addiction. So sociologically, we look at how that actually, from the environmental perspective, how it has affected. And despite that it's affecting you in that way, that you still find yourself still using. So sociologically, we say that it is the repeated involvement with a substance or activity despite the substantial negative effects on the relationships with your significant others, leading to loss of jobs, loss of homes, or problems, legal problems, and of course, dealing with the loss of family. Like many homes are broken because of addiction today. So technologically, we also try to understand the addiction as a compulsive, obsessive use, compulsive and excessive use of technology. Technology, the one that is more close to us, has to do with our phones, the internet. Actually, the internet itself is not the problem. Let me say the devices that carry the internet connection. And of course, it's not just the internet connection in itself. It is what you are using the internet to connect to. So some of us, we do that when you watch television. Maybe there's a particular program or the soap programs, and you find yourself always watching that. Because you are watching that, you have forgotten that you put food on the fire. And then before you know what is going on, it is the smell that, oh my God, my food is burning. Or because of that, you're supposed to go for an interview, but because you are watching the program or playing with your phone or on your computer, you forget that you have an interview and you are late for it. Or, and it begins to cause you this kind of different things. And you still cannot detach yourself from using those things. So technologically, it's your relationship with the technology also. We call it a compulsive and obsessive use of technology despite negative consequences. Like I do ask many people, who was the last person, what was the last thing you touched before you slept? And what was the first thing you touched when you woke up? Sometimes many of us, the first thing we say hello to is our phone, and the last thing we say bye-bye to, it's our phone. So those things go that way that we relate. Again, it's a compulsive. We can't do without them because we're always playing around them. So, of course, because of that relationship, you may have lost a connection with others around you, significant others. And also we look at it spiritually. Addiction is also a compulsive, obsessive, and a possession. The possession in this case is that either the activity that you are addicted to or the substance or the alcohol you are addicted to is actually possessing you in such a way that it is the one controlling you. It is the one telling you what to do, and because of that have resulted in your disconnection with yourself, disconnection with your significant others, and of course, disconnection with the transcendence, that is with God, and leading to loss of meaning and lack of sense of purpose in life. Loss of meaning and purpose in life. So because the only thing that matters to you is that activity that you are addicted to, or that substance that you are addicted to, that have made you to actually disconnect. So addiction also can be done in that way. So we stop there right now to go on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking about different types of addiction. So catch you back when we come back. The Psychospiritual Therapy Institute, which
we of the Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, in collaboration with Miss Joachim, have set up is a project that I am very excited about, and I am very happy that I am part of the birthing of this project. It is aimed at healing of pastoral agents that run into problem on account of widespread trauma, on account of burnout, on account of addictions, and all kinds of problems that pastoral agents do have. But with this project of the Psychospiritual Institute, we shall now be training experts in psychospiritual therapy who will be available in various countries, various dioceses and congregations to help their colleagues who are in difficult life situations of an emotional and psychological nature.
After having a successful breast and cervical cancer screening, Mater Misericordia Hospital has organized a prostate cancer screening camp. The camp will be on 15th November 2020 at the Well Karen between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. For more information on prostate cancer screening camp, contact us on 0722 231 786 or 0722 318 149. Mater Misericordia Hospital cares.
This is Capuchin TV, the program, and then we are this program taking care of your psycho-spiritual well-being. My name is Reverend Dr. Josipayo Seguinjobi. We'll be talking about addiction, and we'll be talking about what addiction was not and what addiction is. And we have looked at it from the different perspective, from the medical perspective, from the psychological perspective. We have also looked at it from socio-cultural perspective, technological perspective, and of course we have looked at addiction from the spiritual perspective. Now we are going to look at the types of addiction. So what we are talking about is addiction. What are we actually talking about in terms of the different types there are? So we have two major types of addiction. We have what we call the AOD addiction, which is called the alcohol and other drugs, AOD. Alcohol and other drugs addiction, and we have what we call behavioral addiction. Because when people think about addiction, they think it's all about I'm drinking or I'm using drugs. No. You can be addicted to certain behavior. You just come on. Now somebody was asking me, somebody can be addicted to sleep, sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. So we look at that when that becomes a problem. So, and in the alcohol and other drugs addiction, AOD addiction, that can be, it could be broken into two also. We look at the alcohol as one and the drugs and the other aspect. In the terms of alcohol, we have different kind of alcohol that one can be addicted to. We talk about beer, which when it is brewed, and then it has a kind of about between 4 to 6% of alcohol content. And also we talked about the wine, which is very common. I know many people prefer wine because it makes them look like they're high class people, and they all want to, the glass, the round glass, it makes them look awesome. So they get used to drinking wine. But we know that wine could go as long as from about 8 to 9% to almost 22% of alcohol, depending on what kind of wine it is and how long that wine has stayed before it is, put outside. So also we have what we call liquor. Liquor, people can be addicted to liquor. That could be like a brandy, whiskey, rum. And you have different types of those like vodka and the rest. And we also call them spirit. You can imagine why they call them spirit. Well, we'll get there later, probably because they behave like spirit, because they possess a person and take hold of a person that the person have nothing to think about but the alcohol. So we also talk about drugs. That's the alcohol. We talk about drugs. And when you talk about drugs, you can look at them in maybe in two different ways also. You have what we call prescription drugs, maybe those ones that are given to us in the hospitals to use. I'm not talking about the dependents now. I'm talking about those ones that are given to us especially for painkiller, And then we have what we call non-prescriptive drugs. Some prescriptive drugs could be legal because it is prescribed in the hospital. That we call the non-prescriptive drugs illicit drugs. So we have an example of illicit drugs, which is prescription drugs that sometimes, many times, they are not even prescribed. We get some of them over the counter, and then we still get addicted to them because they contain substances that we have no idea with. I tell people, drugs are all around us. We all take drugs in one way or the other. If you are taking Coca-Cola today, I bet you have taken drugs, because in Coca-Cola there is caffeine. If you have taken Mountain Dew today, in Mountain Dew there is caffeine. So of course, if you are taking coffee or tea today, you have taken drugs, because in those things there are caffeine, and that's why sometimes when you don't take them, you start having headache, or you start shaking or feeling uncomfortable. That's part of what we call withdrawal symptoms, that you are the effect you are having because you have not taken what you are used to taking. So you can imagine, but those things that I just mentioned now, they are legal. We take them. Even cigarette is legal, and of course it has nicotine in it. But when I'm talking about prescription drugs, I'm talking about those ones like paracetamol sometimes. And when you take like oxycodone, hydrocodone, those strong painkillers, they contain some opioids in them that actually make you to forget the pain that you have, and you may not know. And because you feel relief of your pain, there's a tendency to want to continue to take them, especially when you feel high when you take it. But guess what? We don't react the same way to these drugs. Somebody may feel high, some other person may not feel anything at all. So we also have what called non-prescriptive drugs, like you talk about cocaine, you talk about heroin, which actually in some countries, marijuana is legal. In some countries, many countries in Africa, I know they are still illegal. So when you take marijuana, we call weed, call it another language you want. Yeah, that could be. Miral is taken in Nairobi here, and people take it freely, I think. And then that also can be. And as part of it, there are other things people could be addicted to. There are substances that are not classified as licit or illicit. People take adhesive, Some people get addicted to that. Even the gas, petrol that we use. Some people begin to sniff petrol, and then they get addicted to that. Some people go to the toilet, the soak away, and they begin to smell the gas that is coming from the soak away and getting addicted to that. I mean, that's crazy. Even the incense that we used in the church, some people actually are addicted to that smell. So you can see in terms of drugs, because they have some kind of psychoactive ingredients in them that gets people to be addicted to them. And guess what? The target is always the brain. They make you feel somehow. And that is why when it is even bitter, maybe it's not even sweet, you still see yourself still drinking it. It will never taste bitter or not sweet for you because of the pleasure you derive from them. That's about the AOD addiction. Then we also talk about behavioral addiction. Behavioral addiction, the addictions, they are numerous and there are different categories. There are some that are dealing with us directly, like when you talk about the sex addiction or food addiction. I'm going to talk about that briefly. And then, of course, you have some that they just make us feel the way drugs make us feel, like when we talk about gambling, phone, shopping, even work. You can be addicted to your work. So we're talking about the behavioral addiction. We're talking about those the behaviors that we have become compulsively reacting to. That is either when we just want to do them because of the way they make us feel. Sex is one thing. Even though sex have not actually been classified as such in the DSM-5, we know that people could be compulsive because sex is not not classified yet because of the we are all sexual human beings. Every one of us, even me sitting down here, we are all sexual. And because we are sexual, it's part of our nature. It is difficult to begin to say whether sex it is addiction or not. But there are ways you can actually act towards sexual activities that could actually play out exactly the way addiction will play out. That despite of what you were doing is causing problem for you and you still can't do without it. You are still doing the same thing. And actually when you're having abnormal or inappropriate sexual activities. Also, we have what we call gambling addiction, which sometimes they call the problem gambling. And then, of course, this one, I don't know whether to actually call it, we should call it that way, because it's not the gambling that actually got us addicted to it. It's the reward that we get from it. Just like in drugs activity too, is the reward that we get in our brain that makes us to actually want to continue to drink or to use the drug. The same way, the reward that we get in this case may be money, that we have from the using the playing games, or going to casino and kind of a thing. And there's this tendency, I want to win more, so that is getting on more and more in that level. So we also talk about phone addiction, we talk about food addiction, and we should not mistake food addiction with eating disorder like anorexia nervosa or anorexia bulimia or obesity. No, these are just actually different. Of course, that's another way that is difficult to classify because we all eat and we have to eat every day. But there are certain food that we eat that actually we just see that it's not healthy for us and we still continue to eat them. There's some people who are addicted or to shopping, going for shopping around, or even to your work you do, that the work you do take everything away from you. And guess what? You can be addicted to church. You can be addicted to mosque. You can be addicted to prayer. There's also that part of addiction which we'll be looking at later. And that, it's also that you can be addicted to religious activities because, of course, they make you still feel the same way that somebody who is taking drugs or whatever make feel. But by the time this activity begins to affect your life, affect your family, affect your friends, affect your connection to people, to God, then you begin to put question on them. And guess what? Lastly, you can also be addicted to the addict. And that's what we call codependency. Codependency. You can be addicted to the person who is addicted, that you begin to feel like you can rescue this person, and then in the name of rescuing the person, you are enabling the person more and more. You become an enabler, and sometimes your life becomes even unsettled because you are trying to rescue somebody. That could be another problem also, that by the time the person who is addicted gets cured or treated, you starting your own problem because you have nothing to engage you anymore. So we're going to be stopping that today we just look at what is addiction and what type of addictions there are. We have the AOD and we have the behavioral. And from the AOD, we have the alcohol and other drugs. And then from the behavioral, we have all the one I just finished talking about now, sex, gambling, food, and the rest. So we stop there today. And then we pick it up from there also next week to begin to look at deeper into what causes addiction. What causes addiction? Why is it that some people are addicted to certain things and some other people are not? What are the reasons for all this? So when I see you again, we are on Capuchin TV on this program, taking care of your psycho-spiritual well-being. And then it's always on Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern African Time. See you again next week, and God bless you.